The mahogany doors of Madison Technologies still bore the company motto, "Innovation through tradition." I stood outside them for the first time in 3 years, remembering the day I'd been escorted out, my father's words still ringing in my ears. At 34, Lauren Madison was about to prove just how wrong tradition could be. "Ms. Madison?" The new receptionist didn't recognize me. "Do you have an appointment?" Before I could answer, my brother Derek's voice boomed across the lobby. "What are you doing here?" His perfect corporate appearance couldn't hide the stress lines around his eyes. "Just visiting," I smiled, noting how the once bustling lobby was eerily quiet. Remembering old times. 3 years ago, I'd stood in this same spot, clutching my proposal for digital transformation, a complete overhaul of Madison Tech's outdated systems. Dad's response? "You'll never amount to anything. You're fired." Derek had watched silently as security emptied my desk, his loyalty to Dad outweighing any fraternal instincts. "We're busy," Derek snapped. "Some of us still work for a living." I glanced at my watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than his annual salary. "Really? The empty parking lot suggests otherwise." His face reddened. Madison Technologies, once a leader in enterprise software, was hemorrhaging clients. Their refusal to adapt to cloud computing and AI integration had turned their innovative tradition into a corporate death sentence. "What do you want, Lauren?" he demanded. My phone buzzed, a message from my assistant. Microsoft just terminated their legacy contract with Madison Tech, stock dropping. "Nothing," I replied to Derek. "Just curious how that tradition is working out." As if on cue, a group of employees hurried through the lobby carrying boxes. "More layoffs, the 3rd round this month according to my sources." "Leave," Derek ordered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Before Dad sees you." "Too late for that," our father's voice cut through the tension. William Madison, CEO and chairman, stood at the elevator doors looking significantly older than I remembered. "Lauren," he nodded stiffly. "Come to gloat." I thought about the documents waiting in my car, the ones that would determine Madison Technologies' future. The ones bearing my company's letterhead. "Just checking in," I smiled. "Heard you're having some technical difficulties." Dad's jaw tightened. He'd spent 30 years building Madison Technologies on the principle that traditional software was unbeatable. Now that same principle was destroying everything he'd built. "We're fine," he insisted. "Just a temporary market adjustment." My phone buzzed again, another message. "Oracle canceling partnership. Madison Tech stock down 30% today." "Temporary." I raised an eyebrow. "Like when you said cloud computing was a fad?" Derek stepped forward. "You've seen enough." "Security." "No need." I turned to leave. "I have a board meeting anyway. My company's acquiring some distressed tech assets. You might have heard of us, Nova Digital Solutions." Their faces froze. Nova Digital, the cloud computing giant that had been systematically absorbing failed traditional software companies. That's your company?" Derek stammered. I paused at the door, enjoying their expressions. "Remember when Dad said I'd never amount to anything? Funny how tradition can blind you to the future." As I walked to my car, I could feel their eyes following me. They didn't know it yet, but in exactly 1 week, Madison Technologies' survival would depend entirely on my signature. Sometimes getting kicked out is just the push you need to soar. 3 days after my visit to Madison Technologies, their world imploded. Amazon and Microsoft's simultaneous contract terminations triggered a stock free fall that business networks called the Madison Massacre. I watched it unfold from my penthouse office at Nova Digital, surrounded by screens displaying real-time market data. "Their stock's down 68%, my CFO reported. They've lost 85% of their enterprise clients in the past month. Banks are calling their loans." My phone buzzed, Derek calling for the 3rd time today. I let it go to voicemail, focusing instead on the acquisition papers my legal team had prepared. "Ms. Madison?" My assistant's voice held a note of amusement. "Your father's executive assistant called. They're requesting an urgent meeting." "I bet they are," I smiled, remembering Dad's words from 3 years ago. Cloud computing is for people too weak to build real software. Now his real software company was worth less than my office furniture. Their board called an emergency session, my COO added, entering with more reports. Rumor is they're discussing Chapter 11 options. My phone lit up again, Mom this time. Her voicemail was tearful. Lauren, please. Your father's not sleeping. The company, we need to talk. I pulled up Nova Digital's latest cloud platform statistics. While Madison Technologies crumbled, we'd become the fastest-growing cloud solutions provider in the industry. The worthless ideas Dad had mocked were now worth billions. Reuters is running a special report, my assistant announced. Madison Technologies, the fall of a tech giant. Derek's voicemail played through my speaker. Sis, I know you hate us, but please. Dad's about to lose everything. Just call me back. I thought about the day they'd kicked me out. How Dad had laughed at my warnings about cloud migration. How Derek had helped security pack my things, saying I was embarrassing the family name. Ms. Madison? My assistant interrupted my thoughts. Madison Technologies board chairman is here. Says it's about survival. Through my office windows I could see the Madison Technologies building in the distance. The logo that had once dominated the skyline looked dim, defeated. Send him in, I decided. Let's hear about survival. Sometimes revenge isn't just about winning, it's about making them understand exactly why they lost. The next 48 hours transformed Madison Technologies from a tech dynasty into a cautionary tale. Their stock hit an all-time low, trading was suspended, and every major news outlet covered their spectacular fall. I sat in my conference room watching their board chairman James Wheeler squirm in his expensive suit. The same man who'd seconded my termination 3 years ago. The situation is challenging, Wheeler admitted, spreading financial documents across the table. But Madison Technologies' fundamental value is zero, I interrupted, pulling up real-time market data. Your enterprise clients are gone, your software is obsolete, and your development team jumped ship to actual tech companies. Including mine. My phone buzzed, another desperate message from Derek. Dad's being rushed to the hospital. Stress attack. Please, Lauren. We're prepared to offer Nova Digital a significant ownership stake, Wheeler continued, sliding over a proposal. Your cloud expertise combined with our traditional Traditional what? I laughed. Your outdated infrastructure? Your failed resistance to digital transformation? The same traditions you cited when voting to fire me. The conference room doors opened as my executive team entered, all top minds I'd recruited from Silicon Valley's elite. Several were former Madison Technologies employees who'd seen the future and chosen to follow me. Show him, I nodded to my CFO. The wall screens lit up with our analysis of Madison Technologies' assets. Every failing system, every lost contract, every missed opportunity to adapt, all meticulously documented. My God, Wheeler whispered, seeing the full scope of their collapse. 3 years ago, I stood walking to the window overlooking the city. I presented a digital transformation strategy that would have saved Madison Technologies. Dad called it worthless. You called it naive. We were wrong, Wheeler admitted, his corporate mask cracking. But please, there are 500 families depending on Madison Technologies' survival. My assistant entered quietly. Your father's stable, but the doctors are keeping him overnight. Your mother's requesting you come to the hospital. I thought about the employees I'd seen carrying boxes out of Madison Technologies. About the developers whose innovations had been suppressed by tradition. Nova Digital will consider an intervention, I said finally, but not a partnership. A complete acquisition. New management, new direction, new everything. Your father would never agree, Wheeler protested weakly. I smiled, turning back to face him. In about an hour he won't have a choice. Your largest creditor just sold their debt holdings. To us. Wheeler's face went pale as he understood. Nova Digital now controlled Madison Technologies' fate completely. The board meets tomorrow at 9 a.m., I stated. I'll present our terms then. Better bring security. Dad might need escorting out. Again. As Wheeler left, looking shell-shocked, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. He's asking for you. Sometimes revenge comes full circle, right back to where it all began. The hospital corridor felt longer than my walk out of Madison Technologies 3 years ago. Dad's private room, paid for by insurance he'd soon lose, was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. He's been asking for you, Mom said softly, her designer clothes looking somehow shabby now. Amazing how corporate collapse ages everything it touches. Dad looked small in the hospital bed, his usual commanding presence diminished by a paper gown and 4 lines. His eyes opened as I entered. "Come to finish us off?" His voice was weak but still carried that edge of pride. "The board meeting's tomorrow," I replied, standing at the foot of his bed. "Nova Digital's terms are non-negotiable." "Lauren," Mom pleaded, "surely there's another way. The company's been in the family for 3 generations," I finished. "All of them too proud to adapt, too stubborn to change. Well, change is happening anyway." My phone buzzed. The final acquisition papers were ready. Madison Technologies would cease to exist by tomorrow afternoon. "You've won," Dad said quietly. "Destroyed everything I built." "No," I corrected him, pulling up Nova Digital's market data on my tablet. "I built something better. Something that actually works in this century. You destroyed Madison Technologies yourself, by choosing pride over progress." Derek burst into the room, his tie askew. "The banks are calling everything. We can't even make payroll this week." I let that sink in for a moment. 500 families wondering about their next paycheck because 3 generations of Madisons couldn't admit they were wrong. "Nova Digital will handle payroll," I said finally. "All current employees will be offered positions in the restructured company. Except senior management." "You're firing us?" Derek's voice cracked. "No," I smiled. "You fired me, remember? I'm just returning the favor." Dad struggled to sit up. "The Madison name will survive," I cut him off. "Just not the way you planned. Madison Technologies is done, but its assets will become part of something stronger. Something that embraces change instead of fighting it." I showed them the rebranding plans. Madison Technologies' old headquarters would become Nova Digital's Innovation Center. The outdated systems would be replaced with cutting-edge cloud infrastructure. The tradition that had strangled innovation would give way to actual progress. "Your choice is simple," I continued. "Sign the acquisition papers tomorrow, or I'll let Madison Technologies fall into bankruptcy. Either way I win. The only question is how many families you want to hurt with your pride." Mom started crying softly. Derek slumped against the wall. Dad just stared at the ceiling, decades of certainty crumbling around him. "Why?" he whispered finally. "Why not just let us fail?" I walked to the door, then turned back. "Because you taught me one valuable lesson. Success isn't about destruction. It's about transformation. Even if some things have to be torn down to be rebuilt better." The next morning, Madison Technologies' board voted unanimously to accept Nova Digital's acquisition. Dad signed the papers from his hospital bed. Derek cleared out his office. The Madison era ended not with a bang but with a digital whimper. 1 week later, the old Madison Technologies building lit up with Nova Digital's logo. The employees who'd carried boxes out now carried them back in, to better offices, better systems, better futures. Mom still sends weekly updates about Dad's recovery. Derek applied for a junior position at Nova Digital, in the cloud computing division, ironically. I let HR handle his application like any other. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what they built. It's transforming it into everything they were too proud to imagine. The worthless daughter now signs their paychecks. Tradition, it turns out, is just another word for fear of the future. 1 year after Nova Digital's acquisition of Madison Technologies, I stood in my father's old office, now my innovation center's main conference room. The mahogany panels had been replaced with smart glass, the traditional furniture with modern collaboration spaces. "The transition report is ready," my CFO announced, displaying our first-year results. Madison Technologies' old clients had flocked back once we modernized their systems. Our stock had tripled. "Ms. Madison?" My assistant appeared. "Your father's here for the quarterly review." Since the acquisition, Dad had taken on a consulting role, my idea of subtle irony. He advised on legacy system transitions, helping other traditional companies avoid his mistakes. It was a humbling position for a former CEO, but that was the point. "Send him in," I said, watching through the glass walls as he navigated the open office layout he'd once called chaos. He looked older but healthier. "Monthly paychecks signed by your daughter apparently do wonders for stress levels. The Richardson Group is ready to migrate," he reported, setting down his consultant's laptop. No corner office for him anymore. Their CEO finally admitted cloud computing isn't a fad. Amazing what bankruptcy threats can do for technological adaptation. I smiled. How's Derek enjoying the development team? My brother had surprised everyone by excelling in his junior position. Turns out he had a talent for coding once he stopped fighting against it. He's learning, Dad admitted. Says he wishes he'd listened to you years ago. Speaking of listening, I pulled up the market data. Madison Technologies' old stock certificates are worth something again. As Nova Digital shares. The irony wasn't lost on him. The company he'd tried to protect from change was now worth 10 times more because of that very change. Your grandfather, he said quietly, would have hated this place. Good thing we're building the future, not preserving the past. My phone buzzed, Mom asking about Sunday dinner. She turned the family mansion's formal dining room into a tech-enabled space, complete with digital art and charging stations. Adaptation, it seemed, ran in the family. The Madison name still means something, Dad observed, looking at Nova Digital's logo. Just not what I thought it would. It means progress, I corrected. Which was all I wanted 3 years ago. Later that evening, watching the sunset from my office, I saw Dad and Derek leaving together, father and son, heading to a coding workshop Derek had insisted on. Sometimes the best legacy isn't the one you inherit, but the one you dare to create. And sometimes, teaching your parents to embrace the future is the greatest innovation of all.